Tony fucking Soprano. It's a bust out.
Season 2, Episode 10, appropriately titled Bust Out. This episode serves as the harrowing culmination of Davey Scatino's arc, focusing relentlessly on the methodical, parasitic extraction of every ounce of value from his legitimate business, Ramsey Sports and Outdoors. By this point in the narrative, the illusion of Davey Scatino as a high-rolling player is entirely dead. He is no longer the delusional suburban father attempting to bluff his way through Tony Soprano's executive game, nor is he the man who thought a stutter step could explain away a loan shark debt. The glamour and the romanticized danger of the mob have been violently stripped away, leaving only the cold mathematics of debt and extortion. Davey has transitioned from a civilian seeking a thrill to a host organism being systematically drained by a parasite. Davey Scatino's storyline in this episode is the ultimate tragedy of the American suburb, the realization that the safety of the middle class is a fragile construct, easily dismantled by those who operate outside its rules. To understand the profound tragedy of Bust Out, one must first recognize what Ramsey Sports and Outdoors represents.
Hey, pal, with the rum lotion. Put 3 cases of that in my car.
Got it.
For a civilian like Davey, a storefront is not just a mechanism for generating income, it is the physical manifestation of his identity, his social standing, and his legacy. It is a place of bright fluorescent lights, orderly aisles, and family recreation, the very antithesis of the dark, clandestine spaces where the mafia traditionally operates. In this episode, the sanctity of that suburban space has been completely violated.
No, I want another 14 gross to the model number 4784. Just ship them. I'll worry about selling them.
Davey is no longer the owner of the store in anything but name. He is a hostage within his own domain. The mob does not merely take his money, they occupy his territory. This occupation is a visual representation of how the predatory forces of mafia capitalism infiltrate and hollow out legitimate American enterprises. The contrast between the setting and the actions taking place within it creates a pervasive sense of dread.
Red. Fuck blue. Red sells.
What it is?
Davey thought he was a businessman navigating a tough economy, but in Bust Out, he is forced to realize that he is actually prey that has been cornered in its own den. Every interaction he has with Tony and Richie within these walls serves to reinforce his total loss of agency and the evaporation of his manhood.
He says take 3 gross of the blue coolers. He'll give us a price on the red.
He's never getting paid anyway.
Tony and Richie have effectively transformed a legitimate, family-oriented storefront into a criminal logistics hub. The spatial dynamics in the office are suffocating and deliberately designed to visually communicate Davey's complete emasculation. When we observe these scenes, Tony and Richie dominate the physical space. They sit comfortably, often eating Davey's food, barking orders, making phone calls to their associates, and casually discussing the logistics of fencing stolen goods. They are comfortable, they are in their element. Davey, conversely, is reduced to a sweating, trembling secretary. He hovers nervously, physically marginalized in the very room where he used to be the ultimate authority. His posture is slumped, his eyes are darting. He is experiencing the acute physiological symptoms of a man in a state of permanent panic.
I don't fucking work to move some picnic coolers. Nobody has a fucking idea how much they cost.
The underlying message is a devastating, mocking reminder of Davey's absolute impotence. He is the boss, only insofar as his signature is legally required to commit federal fraud. By forcing Davey to sign the purchase orders, the mobsters are making him the architect of his own demise. He is digging his own grave, and Tony is simply handing him the shovel. When Davey weakly attempts to assert a boundary, expressing anxiety about the sheer volume of the orders, and knowing that his creditors will soon flag his accounts, he is met with absolute, terrifying disdain.
Davey, how we doing them books of airline tickets?
Want to raise a red flag with the travel agency? A sporting goods store charges airline tickets in bulk?
He is trying to apply the logic of legitimate business to a criminal plundering, failing to realize that his credit rating is not something Tony wants to protect. It is the exact resource Tony is mining.
When's one of these vendors going to realize I'm never going to pay him and call the cops?
When your fucking credit runs out, Diamond Jim.
He is spoken to not as a debtor, not even as an employee, but as a disobedient animal. Davey is forced to sit at his own desk, pick up his own pen, and meticulously author his own financial ruin. The true horror of these office scenes is not the threat of physical pain, but the psychological torture of a man watching the lifeblood of his family's future being packed into cardboard boxes, knowing he is entirely powerless to stop it.
Get on the fucking horn and order, unless you're ready to pay us the principal you owe us.
The mundane nature of the goods, water, coolers, tickets, contrasts sharply with the lethal seriousness of the crime, underscoring how the mafia perverts everyday commerce into a weapon of destruction. Every time Davey places an order for another pallet of Ramlesa, the walls of the prison cell he is destined for grow thicker. Perhaps the most potent and pathetic visual metaphor in the entire series occurs when Tony arrives at the sporting goods store early in the morning.
Come on.
The retail floor, once a symbol of middle-class recreation and stability, is largely barren. It resembles a looted city, stripped of its valuable inventory. Amidst this devastation, Tony finds Davey sleeping inside a bright, nylon, child-sized display tent set up on the showroom floor. This image is a brilliant piece of scene composition that conveys volumes of character psychology without a single word of dialogue. Davey, a grown man, a business owner, a husband, and a father, has crawled inside this artificial shelter to escape the crushing reality of his life. The tent represents the ultimate psychological regression. Having destroyed his actual home through his gambling addiction and the subsequent mafia entanglement, Davey seeks refuge in a mock-up of a wilderness shelter.
What are you doing here?
Could ask you the same fucking question.
It's my store.
He has retreated to an infantile state, attempting to hide from the monsters under a literal flap of fabric. It mimics the imagery of a womb, a desperate, subconscious desire to be unborn, to unmake the catastrophic decisions that led him to this point. The tent highlights his fundamental immaturity. The same naivety that made him think he could handle the executive game is now causing him to literally hide from the daylight. He is a boy playing camper while his adult world burns to ashes around him. He is trying to shrink himself down so small that the mob might forget he exists. When Tony unzips the tent, it is a violent intrusion of reality into Davey's pathetic sanctuary. Tony looks down at him not with anger or even pity, but with a cold biological curiosity. The emotional and thematic climax of Davey's arc in this episode, and arguably his entire run on the show, occurs in the immediate aftermath of the tent scene. Davey finally confronts the horror of his situation. He still inexplicably clings to the idea that Tony possesses a conscience regarding their shared youth, and he asks the question that has been haunting him.
You told me not to get in the game. Why'd you let me do it?
Davey is begging for an acknowledgement of betrayal. He is asking Tony to admit that he violated the unwritten social contract of their friendship. He expects Tony to show remorse, to offer a justification, or perhaps to finally acknowledge the profound cruelty of what is happening to his family. Davey is seeking a human connection in a dynamic that has become entirely transactional. He wants Tony to admit that he trapped him. Tony's response is a masterclass in sociopathic rationalization and stands as one of the defining monologues of the entire series. Tony does not yell. Instead, he leans in and calmly explains the fundamental, unalterable law of his universe.
Well, I knew you had this business here, Davey. It's my nature.
He doesn't hide behind excuses or pretend it was an accident. He leans into the accusation. He then delivers the fatal blow.
Frog and the scorpion, you know?
Tony invokes the fable of the scorpion and the frog to perfectly articulate his worldview. In the fable, the scorpion stings the frog halfway across the river, dooming them both, simply because it is in its nature to do so. Tony is explicitly stating that Davey was never a friend. He was an unexploited resource. Tony allowed Davey into the poker game precisely because he knew Davey would lose, and he knew that when Davey lost, Ramsey Sports and Outdoors could be bled dry.
What's the end?
Planned bankruptcy. This is how a guy like me makes a living. This is my bread and butter.
This speech strips away the romanticized veneer of the mafia as an honorable brotherhood. Tony acknowledges that he is an apex predator. He operates on instinct and opportunity, completely devoid of bourgeois morality. Tony's absolute lack of malice makes the destruction infinitely more terrifying. To Tony, ruining Davey's life isn't personal malice. It is just biology. It is the natural order of things. The lion does not hate the gazelle. It simply eats it.
When this is over, you're free to go. You can go anywhere you want.
The final agonizing layer of Davey's arc in Bust Out is his realization of his own profound moral corruption. As the episode progresses, the financial ruin becomes secondary to the spiritual rot. Davey is no longer just a passive victim of extortion. To survive the immediate threat of physical violence from Richie and Tony, he has become an active, daily participant in massive, coordinated fraud. When Davey confesses the reality of the situation to his brother-in-law, Vic Musto, the full weight of his dissent is crystallized in a single devastating realization.
Jesus Christ, David, where the hell have you been? Maybe Christine knows you're gambling again. She told me. You broke.
This is the moment the infection becomes terminal. The mob has not just taken Davey's money, his inventory, and his store. They have fundamentally taken his identity as a law-abiding citizen.
How much did you fucking lose?
For Christ's sakes, Vic, everything. The savings, the business, everything.
By forcing him to sign those purchase orders and fence stolen goods, Tony and Richie have dragged Davey down into the mud with them. He has crossed a moral event horizon. The self-loathing in his voice is palpable. He realizes that even if he survives the physical and financial reality of the bust out, he can never go back to being the man he was. He is fully complicit in the crimes being committed.
I got involved with some bad people. Tony fucking Soprano. It's a bust out.
The happy wanderer has been transformed into a desperate, sweating fraudster, jumping at shadows and waiting for the inevitable federal indictments to drop. He has lost his store, his dignity, and finally his understanding of himself as a good man. He has become the very thing that destroyed him. While both Tony and Richie are the architects of Davey's demise in this episode, analyzing how each mobster handles Davey provides deeper insight into the nightmare he faces. Davey is trapped between two distinct brands of sociopathy. To Richie, Davey is a nuisance that owes him money, and he treats him with the open contempt of a loan shark who feels his time is being wasted. Tony Soprano, however, represents a far more insidious and terrifying brand of management. Tony understands that a bust-out requires the victim to remain functional enough to continue signing papers. Tony's interactions with Davey, such as praising him in the tent or calmly explaining his nature, are forms of psychological manipulation designed to keep the host organism alive just long enough to extract the final drop of blood. Tony's faux gentleness is infinitely more damaging than Richie's screaming because it forces Davey to confront the utter sociopathy of a man he once called a friend. Richie is a thug. Tony is a predator who smiles while he eats you. Season 2, Episode 10, Bust Out, serves as a masterful, agonizing conclusion to the active phase of Davey Scatino's destruction. By focusing entirely on the mechanics of the extortion and the psychological degradation of the victim, the episode provides a brutally honest, unvarnished look at the reality of mob capitalism. Davey's arc in this specific episode is a relentless, inescapable downward spiral, from the physical subjugation in his own back office, to the infantile, desperate regression inside the display tent, to the horrifying realization of Tony's predatory nature, and finally, to the tearful, broken acceptance of his own corrupted soul. The episode leaves Davey as a hollowed-out shell of a man. The bust out is complete, not just in the ledger books of Ramsey Sports and Outdoors, but in the total eradication of David Scatino's life, dignity, and future. He is a man who played a game he did not understand, against men whose very nature is to consume the weak. In the end, there is no redemption for the happy wanderer, only the grim reality of the scorpion's sting.